Welcome. Today's topic, we'll be talking about developing empathy. I wanted to introduce a new segment to my podcast, and that is to start with a message from angels. And this is for all of you. They want you to spend more time alone, whether it's in nature or just quietly contemplating, particularly meditating about whatever you desire to bring into your life or your intentions for your family, yourself. Ask your angels to help you gain a positive perspective on whatever's going on. It's not easy, and they know that. They emphasized that when they gave me this message. So they're really hoping that this can help you feel some hope and bring into your life what you truly want. I want to say a special hello to my listeners in Peoria, Arizona. Oddly enough, I am broadcasting from Peoria today, just down here for the week. So thrilled to have you following the show. Thank you so much. I want to jump into this because I have a lot to share with you today. In a society marked by increasing division, we could all be a bit more kind, right? We could use more cooperation and be more tolerant toward others. Psychological research suggests that empathy could be the umbrella trait, which is the underlying trait required to develop all other virtues. As empathy researcher and psychologist Jamil Zaki, PhD of Stanford University, says, empathy is the psychological superglue that connects people and undergirds cooperation and kindness. I like that. So we need that to hold all of those things together. And even if empathy doesn't come naturally, and it doesn't for some, research is suggesting people can cultivate it. And hopefully that will improve society as a result. I'm going to get into specifics on how to accomplish that later in this episode. In general, empathy is also a powerful predictor of things that we consider to be positive behaviors, that which benefits individuals, relationships, and society as a whole. Scholars have shown that empathy motivates many types of positive social behaviors, such as forgiveness, volunteering, and helping in general. And conversely, lack of empathy is associated with behaviors like aggression and bullying. What is empathy specifically? I'm going to tell you right now. Empathy is that ability to see things from another's perspective and feel their emotions. So if you're empathic, you really have the ability to tap into others' emotions and feel it as your own. Putting yourself in another person's shoes might lead you to act with compassion and do what you can to improve their situation. And in doing so, you can reduce that person's distress as well as any you might be feeling. Imagine you come home to find a family member is ill. Even if you were having a good day, you would suddenly feel their distress and want to tend to their needs. If a friend is upset about the way their boss treated them, you weren't there, but you'd likely share their sense of frustration. So maybe you can't solve their problem, but you can understand that they need to vent their emotions. Empathy is not just about hardships, though. When a child is excited about something, you feel their joy. When your friends start laughing at a joke, you'll start laughing and want to be part of it and find out what's so funny, right? You just start laughing. Empathy allows you to deepen your relationships as you connect with your friends and your loved ones through their thoughts and feelings, and they connect with yours. Empathy can extend to people you don't even know as well. If you saw someone sitting alone at an event, you might empathize with their loneliness and go sit with them, chat with them. And if you saw images of people suffering on the other side of the world, odds are you never met them and you probably never will, but you could be moved to donate resources to try to help alleviate their suffering. So I want to talk about the difference between empathy and sympathy, because while those two words are often used interchangeably, there is a difference between them. Unlike empathy, sympathy does not involve sharing what someone else feels. When you're sympathetic, you care about the person's problem or misfortune, and you might feel sorry for their suffering, but you don't fully feel their pain. When a friend experiences grief, for example, if you're sympathetic, you understand why they feel sad and are grieving and feel sorry for their loss. But if you're empathetic, you can also feel the grief they're going through. as if it's your own. Sympathy is more of a feeling of pity for the person, while empathy is more a feeling of compassion for them. What are the components of empathy? What makes empathy what it is? Researchers tend to recognize at least two components of it, affective and cognitive. So, affective is emotional empathy, and that's the ability to feel what others are feeling. If your spouse is stressed and sad, you might mirror those emotions. If a friend is laughing and upbeat, you might find yourself grinning because their happiness is sort of contagious. Cognitive empathy is the ability to recognize and understand another person's mental state. It gives a person insight into the other person's perspective and emotions. If you recognize that your partner is angry, you can predict that your joke isn't going to land too well. If you can tell that your friend is feeling helpless, you won't be surprised too much by a sudden outburst. These two components of empathy require different neural networks in your brain. So it is possible to have cognitive empathy, but low emotional empathy, or vice versa. There's also empathy differences between sexes. Research shows that women are more likely to report feeling sad when they hear about the suffering of others. And this matches the results of a recent functional MRI study, which showed that female brains appear more receptive to feeling other people's pain. However, the study showed no differences between the sexes in cognitive empathy. You might be thinking, why is empathy so important? Why is that necessary? It has an important role to play in your life. First, it can strengthen your bonds with the people you interact with. And as you try to understand others, you also make them feel heard and understood. And people want that, they need that. They're then more likely to take the time to empathize with you as well. And you want and need that. This deepens your relationship and promotes that feeling of connection that everyone desires. Research shows that having a strong social network tends to increase a person's happiness. Because empathy leads to better relationships, it can be a key component to building a satisfying life. So empathy can also motivate pro-social behavior. It means it motivates you to take action that improves the lives of others. These actions could include anything from donating to a charity, to encouraging a friend to seek help for alcohol abuse, or simply comforting somebody with a hug. It helps you guide your decision making. In social situations, empathy can help you decide the wisest course of action. If your partner seems stressed out from work, you can infer that it's not the best time to ask them to take on more responsibilities, is it? It can reduce burnout. The results of one study suggest that empathy might be useful in reducing burnout. And that is because empathy allows for more effective communication and collaboration, even in difficult work environments. I talk to a lot of people who feel stuck in toxic work environments. So this can help you. It's not going to fix it, but it can reduce the effect upon you. It also helps diffuse conflict. If you're in a bitter argument with a coworker, for example, empathizing with them can prevent you from being overly critical or necessarily cruel. Once you have a better understanding of someone else's perspective, it's easier to move on to proposing a compromise. So, signs of someone that you know lacking empathy. Empathy isn't something you either have or don't have. Some people have a high degree of empathy, those would be empaths, while others have lower empathy. We've all met people who appear to lack empathy. When they see someone upset or having a hard time, they might appear baffled or unclear how to respond. Why are they like that? And can it be changed? Yes, we do have the potential to change. Our empathy is not fixed. It can be developed. It can be increased. Genetics provide part of the story, and the rest of who we are is explained by three things: our environment, how we grow up, and what we are learning right now. So if your empathetic abilities are on the lower end of the spectrum, meaning people are telling you, you just are hard, you don't have any feelings at all, do you? You might feel indifferent to other people's pain. And for example, if a friend's house was burglarized, you might say something like, well, that wouldn't have happened if you were more careful. Or maybe you look down on people who are dealing with financial hardships and chalk it up to their failure to work hard enough. You might even hold a misguided belief that bad things like that would never happen to you. Low empathy can also lead you to believe that the people around you are too sensitive. People with very low empathy are the ones who probably told you you're too sensitive, you're overly sensitive. As an empath, I heard it all through childhood and beyond. I know I'm not alone on that. You might constantly be surprised that your friends are offended by your jokes if you have low empathy. Maybe you don't understand how your words and actions wound your loved ones, and this can lead to all sorts of arguments and misunderstandings. If you have low empathy, you also might have a lack of patience when dealing with people who are in distress. Perhaps your go-to piece of advice for other people is just get over it, rub some dirt on it, all those things that people can be told. Despite this, you tend to hold grudges and don't forgive people for their mistakes. You never seem to have the time or bandwidth to listen to other people's perspectives or reflect on their emotional state. That is not good. So here's how you can recognize a lack of empathy in others. If it's in place, if that's true for somebody you know, you're likely to have some turbulent interactions and could notice the following signs. This person might be impatient, overly critical, leading you to feel as if you need to walk on eggshells around them. They could be constantly dismissing your problems or tuning out when you talk about your feelings. And you might feel generally unheard. Realize that this person's lack of empathy is an issue that only they can correct. Just like all of the things in our personal growth journey, we can't do it for somebody else. They have to do this themselves. We can only fix ourselves. So, what are the causes of the lack of empathy? Because I actually have a lot of people ask me this question in sessions. In some circumstances, it is natural to feel low empathy. You might have a hard time empathizing with someone who bullied you or mistreated your loved ones. And this could just be a situational lack of empathy where you just won't let yourself feel it and not really a reflection of how you empathize with people in general. Certain circumstances might decrease your empathy. For example, some research indicates that empathy can decline as medical students go through training. This could be due to burnout as they struggle with overwhelming workloads and increased responsibilities. And they might also use emotional detachment to protect themselves from psychological distress while on the job or to maintain professionalism when they're dealing with patients. But by no means is it set in stone that experiences will have this effect. Other studies show that empathy levels in medical students either increase or remain unchanged. Another reason might be personality disorders, because several of them, also developmental disorders and mental health conditions in general, can involve low empathy. And let's talk about that. The first one is borderline personality disorder. This involves intense insecurity, extreme emotional swings, and an unstable self-image. So people who have borderline personality disorder might have a lower level, a normal level of cognitive empathy, but difficulty with emotional empathy. Another one's narcissistic personality disorder. These people often exhibit a pattern of extreme self-centeredness and arrogance, as well as a high need for admiration. Some research shows that people with narcissistic personality disorder may have low empathy, perhaps specifically emotional empathy. It's also possible they have a degree of empathy, but little motivation to act on those feelings. Another one not talked about nearly as much is Machiavellianism, and this is a personality trait that involves a tendency to be manipulative and to disregard morality. People with this trait may have a low drive to act on empathy, so even if they feel it, they don't feel motivated to act on it. Another one is psychopathy, which is a disorder characterized by callousness or antisocial behavior. Lack of emotional empathy, but not necessarily cognitive empathy, is a hallmark of this disorder. So they understand what's going on and they understand the person's in distress. They just don't care to feel it. Another reason might be autism. There's a common myth that autistic individuals lack empathy. Some, but not all, may struggle with cognitive empathy. For example, an autistic person might have trouble immediately pinpointing why another person is upset. They might even have a hard time expressing a response that matches what society thinks is normal for responding to that. But this shouldn't be confused with them have a lack of caring. Thankfully, empathy, again, is not a fixed trait. Think of it as a muscle that can be developed with exercise. Developing your listening skills, paying attention to body language, and increasing emotional intelligence can heighten your ability to empathize with others. Embracing your own vulnerability and exploring new perspectives can also help. So here we go, the moment you've been waiting for. How do you build or increase empathy? Number one, practice listening skills. You can't put yourself in another person's shoes if you're not willing to hear what they have to say. And that's why listening skills are a vital part of building empathy. You need to go beyond just pretending to listen. Aim to listen so intensely that you gain a true understanding of the person's situation, views, and emotions. Identify and remove barriers to listening. If you're stressed out, you're going to have a harder time focusing on the other person. So consider addressing the stressor, whether you've got a deadline coming up, you're in pain, before continuing the conversation. Multitasking is another common barrier to active listening. So put your phone away, stop whatever you're doing so you can just give the other person your undivided attention. This is especially important during disagreements or when you're broaching sensitive or complex subjects. Next, don't interrupt. When you cut people off, you not only interrupt their train of thought, but you also risk misunderstanding the point they were trying to make. Because if you're formulating your next sentence while the other person is still talking, you can't be completely listening. Next, withhold judgment. Pet peeve of mine. If you know you disagree with someone, you might find yourself mentally discrediting their thoughts as they speak, but it's best to listen with an open mind. Don't immediately criticize or assign blame while a person's talking. Make a real effort to just listen and understand where they're coming from. Next, let the other person know you're listening. Nonverbal cues such as maintaining eye contact, a head nod, verbal cues such as a quick uh-huh. Let the other person know they have your attention. And you're essentially inviting them to continue without saying the words. And if you appear to be daydreaming or thinking about something else, you zone out, the speaker is going to take that as a sign you don't care. And last, provide feedback. If you think you might have misheard or misunderstood something, ask them a few follow-up questions to try to clarify. The person can then tell you their point if necessary. The second overall way you can develop and improve your own empathy is to learn to read body language. Listening is not just about receiving verbal messages. People also convey a lot of information about their emotional state through nonverbal body cues. The ability to read body language is useful in all sorts of social and your personal interactions. Perhaps you have a friend who frequently says, "I'm doing okay," but you can tell by their sullen expression that something's wrong. Or maybe you can gauge a date's interest in you based on their level of eye contact or lack thereof. People often convey messages through facial expressions, frowns, grins, hesitant smiles, and other facial expressions can convey mood as well. Eye contact, a person's eyes might be aimed at whatever they're focused on. Wide eyes can convey excitement. Drooping lids might imply that the person's tired or calm. The voice, a person's vocal tone can tell you if they're joking or being serious. The speed at which they talk can convey confidence or nervousness. Next is posture. Stiff, tense shoulders might indicate apprehension. Relaxed shoulders and a slouching posture might be a sign that the person's at ease or bored. And last is gestures. Lack of hand gestures can indicate shyness or discomfort. Someone who's feeling relaxed and friendly might use their hands more. The speed and intensity of the gestures can also convey aggression or excitement. Reading body language can be tricky. Not everyone uses the same nonverbal cues, and certain cues can mean different things. For example, if a person's tapping their finger on the table, they might be feeling impatient, or they might be enjoying the song playing in the background. So here's what to consider when you're trying to understand a person's body language. Look for consistency. Nonverbal cues should match what the other person is saying. If this person says they're anxious, they're fidgeting, or their furrowed brow might reinforce that message for you. In situations where body language does not match what's being said, you might need to make more of an effort to understand how that person is feeling. Don't read too much into individual cues. If you focus too much on any one cue, you're likely to misunderstand that other person. For example, just because a person's looking away from you doesn't mean they're disinterested. They might simply be gathering their thoughts, and some people are not comfortable with a lot of eye contact. So when you're looking at body language and you're trying to interpret it, look at multiple cues to gain a more complete understanding. Next, here's a big one. Be aware of your own body language. Remember that your own nonverbal cues are also conveying messages to people around you. I'm always catching myself. Sometimes I'm sitting like at an open mic night and my arms are crossed and I realize it's just more comfortable. To I think that probably looks not very inviting. So I will open my arms up. If you're sitting with your arms crossed and looking away from the other person, they're probably going to take it as a sign you're not approachable. You don't want to talk to them. If you want to encourage a person to engage with you, you need to use positive cues such as a gentle smile and relaxed eye contact to project warmth. Learning ways to manage stress can help you avoid unconscious negative cues such as frowning and holding a rigid posture. The third thing is embrace your vulnerability. Being empathetic requires you to make yourself vulnerable. When you hide behind an air of indifference, you're making it harder for people to trust or understand you. You also hold yourself back from feeling and understanding the full range of other people's emotions. So here are some tips on how you can open up. First, reframe how you think of vulnerability. Maybe you've been taught that that's a sign of weakness. Opening up to others, trusting them to listen and accept you and your flaws actually requires courage. Speak up. Tell your loved ones how you're truly feeling. This requires you to reflect on your own emotional state as well as practice being open with others. Don't hold your true feelings in. You don't need to be nasty. Don't wait till you explode, but tell how you really feel. Be prepared to accept and communicate intense emotions, including shame, jealousy, and grief. The more you talk about emotions, the more comfortable you will get doing so. You'll also notice that other people are going to be more willing to open up to you in return. Say what you need. Make a habit of vocalizing your needs. Nobody's mind readers. They're not going to know. Do you need someone to vent to? Or maybe you need physical help with something. Talking about your needs is healthier than suffering in silence. And not only does it make your life easier, but it also makes your loved ones, your friends, feel trusted and needed. Ease into this. If you have a hard time talking about your emotions or voicing your needs, take things one little step at a time. Maybe you can tell a friend about something that frustrated you about your workday. You can also tell them about parts of your day that made you feel happy and joyful. Or start by making a small request to your partner. Can we go for a walk together this evening? Walking helps me feel less stressed. You're telling them how you feel and you're asking for what you need. Don't dwell too much on your reputation or perfection. Ugh, that's hard. If you're overly focused on how other people perceive you, you might hesitate to be forthcoming. Maybe you feel you need to put up a facade to appear strong and unbothered. Try to let go of that idea and begin to embrace your imperfections. Be yourself. Be authentic. Being honest is going to draw you closer to the people who matter to you. Next is improving your emotional intelligence. So when people take IQ tests, all that's testing is one particular kind of intelligence. Emotional intelligence is actually one of a multitude of different types of intelligence a person can have. This is your ability to identify emotions and use them in ways that improve your life. For example, someone with high EQ knows how to relieve their own stress as well as de escalate heated arguments. It also enhances your ability to empathize with others since it involves recognizing and understanding emotions. Emotional intelligence is often defined by these four attributes: self management, self awareness, social awareness, and relationship management. Here are tips for building each one of those. You can improve self management by learning ways to cope with your stress. Stress can make it difficult for you to be present, impairing your ability to assess emotional, and social situations. So, by learning just a few stress relieving techniques, it's an important step in improving your emotional IQ. Practice relaxation techniques such as deep breathing to help you stay calm and in the moment. Other practices include exercise and meditation. Those are going to help lower your overall stress. Heighten self-awareness with mindfulness practices. Mindfulness involves focusing on the present moment, but withholding judgment. You can use this to connect with and accept whatever emotions you're currently feeling. Are you upset? Are you anxious? Rather than labeling these emotions as bad or negative, foster a curiosity about them. What caused this mood? What do they physically feel like in your body? Are they affecting your interactions with others? Get into more of an observational space where you step outside of the emotions and just look at what's happening. In addition to making you more self-aware, this practice can improve your ability to process emotions and increase emotional well-being. The way you increase social awareness is by focusing on other people. Mindfulness can help you with that task as well. Aim to be present with whoever you're interacting with. Don't wish you were somewhere else or worry about something that's already done and over. You're just right there in that moment with that person or group of people, and you're totally there. What's their body language like? Is there a topic they keep circling back to? Connect this social awareness to your self-awareness. Is the person saying or doing anything that's stirring emotions for you? Maybe their body language puts you at ease, or maybe they're saying something that makes you a little anxious. So make little mental notes of that. Start focusing and paying attention to that. Use conflict resolution skills to manage relationships. Even when you're interacting with your best friend or close family member, disagreements are bound to arise. You might have differing opinions on politics. Imagine, if you will. Or perhaps your plans for a joint vacation just don't match up. Maybe one of you accidentally offends the other. Knowing how to pick your battles, compromise, and practice forgiveness can help you navigate these inevitable conflicts. Number 5 is explore new possibilities. People are more likely to feel empathy toward people who are like them. You might feel more inclined to empathize with and help someone who looks like you, behaves like you, shares your goals, or experiences similar hardships. Unfortunately, that can lead to empathy biases when it comes to differences in factors like race, religion, or culture. Here are a few ways you can counter that. Actively expose yourself to new perspectives. If you're not religious, attend a religious ceremony. If you're politically conservative, listen to podcasts that present a liberal perspective, or vice versa. If you're used to city life, spend some time in rural communities. Look for common ground, but also acknowledge the differences. You don't necessarily have to agree with every perspective you come across. However, taking the time to simply listen with an open mind can help you see the humanity in people with different backgrounds or views. One thing I tend to do when I'm thinking about that, because I just think about it, what do I have in common with this person? I want my children, grandchildren to be safe too. I want them to have a better life than I did. I want peace in the world. I want to feel secure. I mean, it's just like worldwide, people want these things. And I like seeing that, acknowledging that. Next, enjoy fiction. Even engaging with the perspectives of fictional characters can enhance your empathy. As you read a novel, try to understand a character's motives, goals, and emotional states. In other words, you're exercising your ability to empathize. The same thing is true whenever you're watching a character-driven TV show or movie. I have to tell you, I love Grey's Anatomy, but when I watch Grey's Anatomy and something sad happens, I'm a mess. And I keep telling myself, it's just a TV show. It's just a TV show. That's the problem of being an empath. Considering embracing novels, movies, and other works of art that are made by people from different cultural backgrounds. For example, if you're Caucasian, read more books by Latino authors. Be willing to question your assumptions. As you engage with people of different backgrounds, you'll likely find that many of your earlier notions of them were inaccurate. It's okay to admit being wrong. Frame it as a learning experience. You can also begin to question your assumptions in daily situations. Perhaps your friend has a good reason for running late. Maybe that taxi driver was rude because he was under heavy stress. Practice using what ifs to consider other perspectives. It's true that building empathy is a way to expand your social circle and boost your happiness, but don't overlook the benefits it has for people you encounter as well. Empathy can have a ripple effect. As you take the time to truly listen to others, you're providing them with some level of emotional comfort, and it's possible that you're making it easier for them to trust, comfort, and empathize with even more people. It's kind of like you just never know the ripple effect that you create by doing good. And showing empathy is definitely doing some good. If you would like help developing your own empathy, speak to a licensed therapist. They can guide you through that process, provide feedback on your progress, and assist in overcoming challenges associated with a developing sense of empathy. I hope that this has been an enlightening episode for you. Tune in next week. The topic is going to be a guest appearance by Karen Gruber. She'll be talking about the spiritual client code. It's going to be very interesting. In the meantime, may your angels surround you. May your angels protect you every moment, every day of your life. I'll see you next week.